Hey guys, good morning. Um, so I just wanted to pop in here for a little bit to kind of share a story with you. I had a late night, so I am having a late morning as a result. And I also sound a little weird, but I'm going to explain this to, that is all related. But I wanted to share this in a safe place because it's very personal. I wasn't sure if I was going to, but I had the thought this morning to share it, and then I got a sign that it was the right time to do it. So um, there's something that if any of you have been around me for any length of time, and if you haven't, you'll notice this. I make a very deliberate effort to make the distinction between mental illness and mental health. They're two very different states of mind. Mental illness has a very saying that you have a mental illness is, in my opinion, very disempowering, because you become a victim to your body, you become a victim to the symptoms, you become a victim to a diagnosis, and you don't heal from a place of disempowerment. You just don't, from a place of victimhood, you just don't heal from that place. When I say people are on their journey for mental health, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's hope in that for me, and I believe that it's much more empowering to talk about health rather than talking about curing illness. Maybe it's just something because I was around it for so long, and that's how I kind of changed my perspective on the terms. Whatever works right for you guys is right for you, but for me, that's why I make the distinction. Even bigger on that, particularly when it comes to mental health and mental illness, because that's really what I'm going to talk about today. There's a difference, no matter which diagnosis you have. There is a difference in how you will approach yourself and approach your journey. Whether you're looking for mental health or you're wallowing in mental illness. And the biggest distinction I'm trying to make here is that there are people who are mentally ill and have no desire to get better. And then there are those of us who are constantly striving to find that inner balance, whatever that's supposed to look like at any given point. But the story I want to share with you is a little bit of my own background, and with a recent story that happened last night. That's why I had the late night. That hopefully, I'm hoping will help anybody who may be going through something like this, or even if it's just that you get to know me a little bit better and understand why I do what I do. But anyway, I felt called to share it, so I'm going to share it here. You may or may not know, I've talked about this in some respects, but my mother is a malignant narcissist. Now, whether she would be officially diagnosed with NPD or just be on the like a very unhealthy narcissist is subject to interpretation, subject to a lot of tests, which she would never go through because she's a narcissist. It's one of those like chicken and egg things. But I've talked about her in some respects, but I haven't really delved deep into how that's affected me and my siblings, and why there's so much depression and anxiety in my family, and why I had it, like why I still really, there's some days that are better than others, but there's just an example. Is last night, my dad has been having some health issues for the past couple of years, and in the past 2 months he's had 3 health crises that have landed in the hospital. And I don't live with my parents. I live in Chicago. My family, my parents and my siblings are in New York. That's a very deliberate decision on my part. I left for college, and except for a 2-year period where my brother had cancer and was going through chemo treatments, I have not lived with my parents. For me, they're just energetically just very draining people, and the story will explain why. My mother being who she is, and being as ill as she is, will throw fits, and this is not like a Tourette fit where you're stuttering or having a violent tic or something like that. She has rage fits, and she will start yelling at one of us, whoever is most available, and gaslight us, meaning she'll she'll switch everything that's the truth into a lie, and berate us, demoralize us, lots of yelling, lots of really cruel terms and words. She's called me a whore. She's called me a prostitute. I know at one point my brother, after he had gone through his chemo treatments and he came out okay, she had one of her fits shortly after his treatment was done, and she yelled at him that she wished he had died instead of living through cancer. So that hopefully gives you an idea of what it is that I grew up with. And it's difficult to talk about even now, because while I have dissociated myself, energetically anyway, and geographically, I know that my siblings are still in the middle of it, and I do what I do for them at the core of it. I don't have any kids. I don't know if I will, but they have, and while we're not particularly close, and there's a reason behind that too, we weren't allowed to be as kids. The thing with my mother was that she would constantly pit us against each other. So she would tell one person was talking about the other, like with my sister, she often was like, oh, your older sister said this, and then she'd tell me that my sister said something else, just so we would be mad without talking and never really coming together and saying like, well, she told me this and she told me that, what's the truth? So we spent a lot of our childhood being imaginarily mad at each other, which really prevented any sort of close relationship until we got older. It wasn't until I went away to college that my sister would occasionally contact me whenever she would have one of her fits, because she gets very violent. Even yesterday, the one that happened yesterday, she was beating my brother, my little brother. He's 16 years old, and he's not a small kid anymore. He's taller than I am and stuff, but 17, or he's going to be 17. No, he's 17 now. He's going to be 18. But she was yelling at him because she's been away in Pakistan for 2 years, and he's been taking care of her finances. She did this to me when I was 14. But when you're that age and you're around financially irresponsible people, you don't know how to be financially responsible if it's not modeled for you. So he's doing the best that he can, considering my mother has just dropped all her responsibilities here and went away to another country halfway around the world for 2 years, yet still expects everybody to kowtow to her. And what happened last night was that my older brother, the one who had cancer, he's in his mid-20s, oh Jesus, I can't even remember now, 26, he's going to be 26, 25, 26 years old. Man, he's getting old. I feel old now. But my older brother, when he saw that my mother was, emotionally and physically beating my little brother, got in the middle of it and hit her. Now, I do want to completely make this very clear. We were raised to be very respectful of our parents, and even though growing up we knew that my mother was completely off her rocker, um, we never said it to her face. We never, and this is just the way that we are being Pakistani, like my parents are Pakistani immigrants, and this is the culture. This is what we're taught. So you don't raise your voice in front of your elders. You don't criticize them openly, and you definitely don't call them on their bullshit. You know, that's really just what it matters. You just want compliance. So we never did. Occasionally, like in recent years, we've started pushing back at her, but yesterday my brother snapped, and it's been 25 years of abuse. And at some point, when you know what the truth is and somebody consistently is disrespecting you and gaslighting you, you reach a point where you snap. And he snapped yesterday. I will be the first one to say that I was really, really proud that he did it. I was not there. So I'm actually upset I didn't have a chance to do it myself. I'll say that right up front. But she's mentally ill, and she has no desire to know that there's another way to live than the way that she lives. And that's what comes with narcissism. It's there's just this ignorant belief that the way you do it is the only way to do it. And everybody else who doesn't agree with you is wrong and evil. And the stuff that she said last night to my sister and to my brothers and to my father, not the first time she's done it. Not the first time. Like, she yelled and screamed, and after my brother got physical with her, she walked out in the cold, leaving my dad, who just got out of the hospital from a stroke, very anxious, very worried, very stressed out, which, if you've ever been around anybody who has health issues, doesn't help the health issues. And that's mental illness, and that's where you don't have the desire to want to be better, live better, change, a proactive change. And I'm on the polar opposite of that. All right, so I've worked very hard to forgive her for the way that she treated me as kids, and even now as adults. And it's hard. Like, it's very hard when your mother is like that. Especially in a society that reveres mothers, and you realize that you don't have that. And normally I would wallow for a very long time, and even though I wasn't there and I didn't experience it, I know what my siblings are going through, and I'm mostly just hurt that I can't be there for them. Because we're the only ones who know how hard it is to live with her. And but at the same time, I have to remember that I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if it wasn't because of her. So there's there's this weird dichotomy that I live with, which is having all of this anger. And this is where my depression and anxiety comes from, and this is the difference between mental illness and mental health. I understand why I feel the way I feel. I have an extreme awareness of where it comes from. And people have self-worth issues for any number of reasons. And each one is legitimate in its own right. I'm not saying that one set of problems is bigger than another. I would never say that. Because everyone's experience is their own, and trying to say that somebody else has it worse is a really bad way to invalidate you. It's just you invalidate yourself, and that's not going to help you move forward. So I never say that one experience is worse than another, but at the same time, it is very hard to grow up and continue to live a life where you have a toxic mother, and especially one that like, I have my boundaries in place, but this has been 5 years in the making with these boundaries. I try very, very hard to make sure that I keep my life safe, away from her, because like the last time that I saw her was in December in 2015, and she was in Pakistan, and I visited her there. I was there for 10 days, and I was in a car accident where she was driving the car. I almost died, and I thankfully, like, there was no serious injuries, but there that experience really kind of highlighted for me that she's not an emotionally fit mother, unfortunately, because I understand her experience and why she is the way she is, but at the same time, she's not willing to change, and she hurts other people. At that point, it then becomes my responsibility, becomes the responsibility for my siblings, for us to take care of each other and ourselves first, rather than waiting for her to change, because she never will. Like, this is just who she is. And the thing with narcissism is that it's very hard for them to change, because self-awareness is something that they cannot handle. And for me, I recognize that I had to have her as a mother to be who I am today. I recognize that. That does not mean that I'm not still going to be hurt by her. And it's a constant work in progress for me. Last night brought up a lot of deep wounds that have been wanting to get cleared out for a while. And I'm working my way through them. I think the past couple of years, the work that I've done has helped in not spiraling me out of control when it comes to her. The car accident notwithstanding, that was a pretty bad experience. But the difference between mental health and mental illness is that one is where you want to get better, mental health. Excuse me. And the other is where you either can't see that you're ill, or you don't care that it affects other people. And I'm sharing this mostly because, so you guys understand that I still live with mental illness very prominent in my life. Even though I have the boundaries in place, I still mostly make it a point to make sure that I call my mother and my father once a week. On my terms. They will call me multiple times during the week, but I call them when I'm ready to call them, and that's a very big boundary for me that I've been able to maintain. I don't visit them very often. The side effect of that is that I also don't get to connect with my siblings as much as I'd like to, but I do my best to for them to understand that it's not about them. I just can't be around my parents. Can't be around that much negativity. I can't be around that much energy leaching that it takes for me to fake it. It's very, very hard for me to do that. So I just don't put myself in that situation. But, they're not bad parents. They're not bad people. They're sick. And there's a big difference with that. But when your sickness starts to affect the people around you, it's incumbent on those of us who are dealing with it, and this will apply to anyone, to make sure that you put boundaries in place and because that's a sign of you taking care of yourself. And that's extremely important when it comes to dealing with your own mental illness and mental health, and somebody else's mental illness. So, well, I know this is a little bit long-winded, but I just really wanted to share that with you guys. If you guys have any questions on the replay, any comments or anything, please post them below. This was really raw for me, so I'm going to go and relax a little bit before I get back to work, but I hope everyone has a good day. I will pop in and with something much more fun later on. Yeah, I would love to hear from you if you've had any experience with mentally ill people versus like people who are striving for mental health, and what the difference is between that, or any experiences you may have had that you're looking for help on. Please post them. I'm more than open. Like, that's what I'm here for, is to help you guys. And maybe share a little bit of what happens to me on a day-to-day basis. But I hope everyone has a good Thursday, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.